Well, Princey, welcome to the show. Um, how are you? How's life? How's things in Africa, and how's nuclear in Africa? Give me the spiel.
Well, myself, I'm fine. And things in Africa are fine, but I'm based in South Africa. As many people know, Africa has 55 states. There are many, many African states I have not reached, have never
Yeah,
been to.
yeah.
Yes, but things in South Africa are fine. The weather is good. We are slowly approaching autumn. But with regards to nuclear in South Africa, things are looking good because we recently released the energy policy, the updated energy policy, which we call Integrated Resource Plan in 2025, just around, I think, November. And the energy policy, for the first time in how many years? 10 years? It has nuclear capacity in it.
Wow,
5,200 megawatt of nuclear capacity, and
wow.
which is good,
Yeah,
and considering where we come from. But policy does not mean anything if there's no implementation. So we are
yeah.
looking forward to the implementation of the policy. But the current minister is very, very pro-nuclear. But what has also happened within the space of, you know, few few months after the policy has been released, our utility, we have new energy, what the power utility in South Africa, Eskom. You probably know about Eskom.
Yeah, I do.
So Eskom, there were talks about Eskom being unbundled into three divisions, which happened. The generation, distribution, generation, transmission, and distribution.
Yeah,
So that happened, and now recently, when the president was speaking at his addressing the nation at the State of the Nation address, he mentioned that the transmission company should now be an independent company away from Eskom.
okay,
So many people don't really support this because
okay.
now that means people are scared of privatizing electricity in South Africa. We're scared of,
Mm,
including myself. I'm also scared of privatization because we know what happens when things are being privatized. It,
yeah,
the especially basic, resources such as electricity, they won't be able to reach as many people as they can, especially in the rural areas. We've
yeah,
seen
yeah,
we've seen it happening with our cell phone companies, our
yes,
network companies, the likes of
yeah,
Vodacom, MTN, that when things are private, not many people can afford. So
yeah.
yeah, now the transmission company moving away from Eskom now. Eskom had a debt of about was it 400, is it 40, 400 million and something. So there's a debt. So now when this transmission company is moving away from Eskom, it does not move away with the debt. So the debt is left with Eskom. And
Right.
now that is not the recommendation of Eskom board and Eskom CEO together with the current minister. So what
Yeah.
President announced there is something that his advisors, you know, recommended. And it was a shocker even to minister, because now why would I, hear from the speech what's happening in my department when it is my department? I should be giving
Yeah.
recommendations. So these recommendations, but the business people are excited.
Yeah, I mean, we have this problem in New Zealand that electricity companies are making record profits. They're making a lot of money, and but households are paying a lot more for electricity. Last year, the prices went up by 12%. This year, it will go up by 6%, and it will just gonna keep going up and up and up. And I said, well, why not we just cap it? Why not we just stop them from exploiting people? And I think when inflation around the world went up, everybody just wanted to increase prices because consumers were normalized with this idea that prices are just going to go up. So I feel like everyone's just exploiting vulnerable people and communities and households and just trying to take more of their money. Where in fact, if you're making so much profit during a time like this, maybe you shouldn't be putting your prices up, right? So yes, that privatization thing is a big issue. But I'm excited that you have nuclear in your policy. So what is the plan? How do you get that generation from nuclear? Do you invest into startups like we see in America and Europe, or is it sort of government has to build reactors and generate that? What is the plan for South Africa to, generate that much nuclear power?
Well, there's no concrete plan yet. That's what I can say. But from what I've been hearing from the minister is that there's gonna be this partnership between, private businesses and government to deliver energy projects in South Africa.
Yeah.
And we've
Yeah.
heard other, startups, SMR people already wanting to join
Yeah.
the space, and people who don't support government, by the way, building things in South Africa, but they are well prepared to come in, and do their business privately. But now you know what happens with nuclear. You can't implement nuclear without being in partnership with government. And that's what we are
Yeah.
trying to explain to many people, because nuclear is a complex project
Yeah.
altogether. It's
Yeah.
not like building a solar power plant and stuff, but it
Yeah.
is complex. It involves
Yeah.
nuclear radioactive waste, which
Yeah.
its government is in charge of it.
Mm.
Someone contacted me saying they want to, get into this nuclear, the nuclear waste business. I'm like, what would happen if private businesses, are in charge of managing our nuclear waste? Imagine yourself when you don't
Yeah.
get paid. What would you do with that nuclear waste?
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
happens that, yeah, but it's going to be a partnership between government, private businesses, but we'll see. We really don't have a concrete plan yet, but I'd love to see governments, taking a huge step, do like what Egyptians have done, build a big
Yeah.
power plant.
Yeah.
With regards to SMRs, I'm fine with having, private businesses. But we still need that huge power plant like Quebec. You do know that we only have one nuclear power plant in South Africa, or in Africa as a whole, which is
Mm.
Quebec in Cape Town. But I'd like to see another Quebec being built. But also what has happened is that in terms of the environmental impact assessment of the site where the nuclear build is supposed to happen, the only site that is currently approved right now is the site where Quebec is at. So meaning now they're gonna build more nuclear power plants in Quebec. And that's not what
Yeah.
many people want. It's
Mm.
like all good things go to Cape Town. But there are also other earmarked sites, and one of them is in the Eastern Cape, the Thaispend site, which many people would love to see nuclear build program go to, which is in the Eastern Cape. But that site is not yet approved. It has not received the environmental impact assessment yet.
Yeah.
So
So
that's how.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you don't want other towns to have the opportunity to have nuclear plants, have those jobs, talents, and those towns. It's exciting. You don't want it all kind of going to just one place.
One place,
Uh,
no.
but at the same time, you have this complexity issue that when you have one in one location and all the talent is in that area, it kind of like sucks more projects into that area as well. So you have that kind of both thing going on.
Even tourists, they go to Cape Town. I'm sure if I ask you where in South Africa would you like to visit to, you're also gonna say Cape Town.
Probably. I mean, I'd rather go do like a safari or something, but
Okay.
Cape Town is the one that I can remember. But yes, I think you have a fair point. So how much power is this Cape Town facility generating today?
It generates around 1,800 megawatt. It's two
Yeah.
reactors.
Wow. And is that part of the base load power
Yes,
for Cape Town? How much of
yes.
Cape Town is powered by nuclear?
It's not only Cape Town is in the Western Cape province, so the whole of Cape Town I can say, but half of Western Cape province is powered by nuclear.
Wow. That's really cool.
Mm.
That's amazing. And there are also some projects happening in Ghana, Kenya as well for nuclear, right? They're building new plants, yeah?
Yeah, not projects as such, but yeah, promises of projects. But I'm glad they are moving because you at least they probably have a plan. If you look at Kenya, they've also have a site that they were promoting for many years, but the environmentalists said no. So now I heard that they were gonna start from scratch and look for another site. I don't know if that has happened, but yeah, they seem to be moving. Also, Ghana seems to be moving, and at least they now probably at the request for proposals stage, or they've moved beyond the request for proposals. But all of these are planned. Even Uganda, Uganda also had a site and stuff. But all of these are plans until
Yeah.
we see, the first concrete being poured. You know how politicians work. I
Yeah.
mean, at times, I do feel like in South Africa, politicians, they politic using nuclear, because before elections, you'll hear a lot about nuclear build programs, but after elections, then it gets quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah.
And that already tells you that South Africans don't have a problem with nuclear.
Yeah. That's why we need more
Yes.
podcasts.
You see, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's happening in Ghana, Rwanda. I can tell you that in Rwanda is gonna build a small modular reactor quite soon, because the
wow.
president of Rwanda is decisive. I
Wow.
heard that he said there's a startup company, a German company that is working on an SMR in Rwanda. He said
Wow.
they're gonna build that SMR. It's gonna get licensed along the way. He's not gonna wait for it to be licensed, because he knows how long these things take.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. You do have to kind of I think that's the exciting thing about nuclear now. We're trying to figure out how we accelerate, how we build them faster, how do we get to criticality, how do we have better regulation, how do we have different types of fuels, how can we have less spent fuel, waste fuel that we have to store, how do we store them. There's some really fascinating facilities that are being built in Norway, in Sweden, around spent fuel,
Constantly.
underground storage, all sorts of different things. And I think that's what's exciting, that there is this new age of these nuclear technologies and ways of doing things. They're much more safer and much more clean. They generate more power, and they can be thorium. They can be all sorts of different types of fuel.
Mm.
Um, and so tell me, I'm curious to learn, how did you get into nuclear? How
It
did you
was
get
by
into this whole world of nuclear?
it was by mistake. That's number one.
Yeah,
I needed a job,
yeah,
and I got a call from the recruiter saying I must go and to that company where they are looking for an admin assistant. Only to
yeah.
find that I'm gonna travel over 100 kilometers. I still could not like find a company. And then
Wow,
later, when I found a company, I was very late for an interview. It was supposed to be at 10 o'clock, and I arrived at 2 o'clock.
wow.
Eventually arrived at 2 o'clock. And arriving there, I was like, I'm not coming back here, because where am I? Nuclear, the nuclear facilities are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
I'm
very
like, where am
remote.
I? I'm not coming back here. I
Yeah.
did an interview, then I left. I was definitely not coming back. Then I got a call again the following week. The recruiter says, I got a job. I'm like, I don't want it. What's happening in there? Why is it a mine? What is it?
Yeah.
Then she had to convince me. It took an hour for her to convince me until
Wow.
I agreed. I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm gonna go. Like I was doing her a favor. Oh, it's fine. I'll go. Then I went, only to find that I'm in a nuclear facility. Then I started learning about nuclear. Like, what is this nuclear? At that time, I did not know nuclear because I didn't study science.
Yeah.
Like, what is nuclear? Then I started learning because I was also in the communications department. Okay, I learned, and then my colleagues, I started, accompanying them to do schools outreach, organizing all these exhibitions and stuff. And then I learned, and then I developed interest. In me developing an interest, I started, searching for trainings. And then there's one training that happened in it was in Finland, which I wrote an abstract for, so I can attend. Then I went to Finland and I was so fascinated, and I came back, like wanting to talk about nuclear. And then
Yeah.
I joined things like the Women in Nuclear South Africa, African Young Generation in Nuclear, and all that. So I can learn more and be in the space. And then
Yeah.
before I knew it, I was doing it internationally. I was traveling all over the world, and I founded Africa for Nuclear,
Wow.
is with an aim to promote nuclear on the African continent.
Yeah. And you do a great job of that. I mean, your content on TikTok, on YouTube, there, I mean, it's just, we do live in a world where there is so much misinformation about nuclear, and
Yes,
nuclear, has a negative sort of uh, connotations to it, and it's very much underrepresented in everything we talk about in terms of energy generation, grid stability, clean energy, geopolitics, all that stuff. It's the nuclear should be right in the forefront, because that's your main source of clean base load energy that you need. And yes, in a lot of remote locations, you can still, you can argue the point that solar and batteries are a cheaper way to go about, but no, I think I was quite fascinated of the
lucky
work you've done.
lucky for us, we don't have to argue. In South Africa, I've reached a point where I'm tired of arguing, because some people just want to argue. They do not want to hear facts.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard about the word load shedding. We've
Yes.
experienced a lot of power cuts in South Africa.
Yes.
They come in different stages. When it's
Right.
stage one, it means you're going to be out of power for 1 hour. Load
Right.
shedding stage two, 2 hours. We reached load shedding stage eight in
Wow.
a couple of years ago. We were on
Wow.
stage eight. That's like 4 hours in the morning, another 4 hours at night. 8 hours.
No,
You see.
no,
So
no
that's what
power.
we reached. Now, during that time, our power utility, Eskom, would release statistics every evening to say that, how much the demand was and the supply was. And then they release where that supply came from. And then they would show from coal power plants, this number of megawatts, from Quebec, this number of megawatts, and from renewables, they have 6,500 megawatts of new renewables, as at Eskom.
Yeah.
Obviously it belongs to independent power producers contracted with Eskom. So it's
Yes.
6,500 megawatts. So when they say during peak hour, out of 6,500, we only got 1,400 megawatts, not even half of what they promised us. So that's what I go and fetch and say, oh, you want to argue? Okay, let's go back to Escom page. This is what they said
Yeah.
yesterday, So
Yeah, yeah,
we
you
have
have to go,
proof.
yeah. You have to go back to the facts, and you have to look
Yes,
at the problems, and the fact the problems is getting bigger, and you're going from stage 1 to stage 8,
stage 8,
and
yes.
which demands escalation and urgency of solutions, and nuclear is your best solution, especially for developing countries, where you cannot really get to a point of becoming an economically prosperous nation
Without base load. Now the
without
conversation has
base load. Yeah,
changed.
yeah,
The
yeah,
the proponents of renewables are saying load shedding was able to be addressed because independent power producers came to the party. They now delivered more electricity to private businesses like mines and stuff. Things that really we can't prove. So it's because of them that load shedding was addressed. That's what they are saying. So you see, arguments, they never take us anywhere, even if you provide proof, because some
yeah,
people, they are just uh, you know, read from the script and they don't want to hear anything else.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think also one of the things that you can do in terms of a government is, funding your own South African startups. and getting, finding people in the nuclear world that are entrepreneurs in universities or they're doing PhDs and
Y-
getting them to start startups. That's also one of the
I'll
that's what
tell you. You
yeah.
remember the Pebble Bed Modular Reactor?
Yeah.
That's our startup.
Okay. Great.
So the story of SMRs started in South Africa because that PBMR was our government, was our project. And we had, many people working on the PBMR project, and yeah, it was promising. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, in 2010, it was placed under care and maintenance. It was discontinued. People
Wow.
cited, it needed more money, but it was just a lack of political will because the change of government also played a part in this. But yeah, we tried. We tried. So when I hear people claiming the pebble bed modular reactor as theirs, I'm like, no, it belongs to us. I
Yeah.
was watching the heads of state film where with Idris Elba and John Cena.
Yeah.
So I think that film is centered around the people wanting to kill those two presidents. Yeah, they want to kill them, and it's based on technology and development and stuff. Then they talk about the pebble bed modular reactor, and the American president says, yeah, they want their technology, the PBM, the PBMR technology, which they developed. Da, da, da. The script is centered around them developing the PBMR. I'm like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
We implemented PBMR. Yes, the idea may have came from Germany, but
Yeah.
definitely not in the US.
Yeah. 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 And you've been around the world and exploring nuclear. Who do you think is doing nuclear the best around the world? Who's got the best capabilities, or who's figured out what's the best way to do it?
We all Quebec was built by French.
Okay.
So I'm not saying they're the best in the world. I do think all of them. I don't want to lie, but the I mean, obviously, Quebec was built by French, and they built it on time because the reactor was switched on. The first reactor, you know, gained criticality after 8 years. So that was right on time. But now French projects they delay. You see the Hinkley Point, see what's happening there. Many projects that the French are building right now, they delay. But also, if you look at the UAE, the Al Daba nuclear power plant, which was also built on time by the Koreans. So I
Okay.
would say that I wouldn't say there's one that is the best because now we are talking about the project management issue here,
Yeah.
which also plays the big part. I always say to people, you cannot complain about, because in South Africa they always compare our coal plants that were built, not many years, the last coal plants that we built, which the projects delayed for many decades. Now, when we say we want nuclear, they compare nuclear project with that coal plants. I'm like, this is a project management issue. How do you even compare these two things that are not comparable? Because yes, it's a project management issue. Maybe the project manager of nuclear would do things better. So
Mm.
it is a project management issue. But also, if you look at what is happening in Egypt, the Russians are building the El Daba nuclear. Oh, Egypt is El Daba. UAE is Baraka. Yeah, UAE is Baraka. Yeah, so the Egyptians are building their first nuclear power plant, and it's built by Rosatom. And they're also doing a good job. They have been there. I was there last year. So they're also doing a good job. So for me, I feel like, I don't know, I'm probably biased because I love nuclear. I feel like everyone is coming to,
Yeah.
is stepping in,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless,
China,
of
yeah.
course,
China is doing lots of new plants. Russia is doing a lot of it. Russia
yes,
is actually selling a lot of nuclear energy, exporting a lot of nuclear energy. Trump has just signed executive orders to accelerate
to
testing
accelerate,
and
yes,
criticality of a few startups in America that just flew a Valor Atomics nuclear reactor in a C-17 aircraft, military aircraft, to Utah for a military test, so they can use it for military camps and independent revenue, energy sources for those camps. So yes, you're right. There's a lot of countries that are building very solid capabilities on nuclear energy generations, project management, the fuel. There's some really fun companies in America, like Standard Nuclear. They're building triso fuel.
Mm,
Copenhagen Atomics are working with thorium and salt reactors. It's a non-fission reactor that gets to fission, through a natural process. And they've just signed a
mm.
deal with Norway Rare Earths to secure a lot of the thorium supply. So then they can, provide this nuclear as a service offer where they build a container sized nuclear reactor, and they can drive it to you, plug it, and manage it for you. And then you pay for that service, right? So
Wow.
you can supply these to data centers, you can supply these to, heavy machinery that use a lot of energy, or like in New Zealand, we burn a lot of energy by converting milk into milk powder and then export that into China, for example, right? So you can actually isolate these heavy energy users from the grid so the prices don't go up, right?
Oh.
Um, yeah, so it's
But
pretty cool how.
looking at all these startups, I mean, obviously the likes of America and other, developed nations can afford to, to take that risk and invest in a technology that may take off maybe after decades. But yeah, we can't. But looking at all these SMRs and innovations that are coming, who do you think is going to finally have an SMR that is working okay, besides what the Chinese have? Obviously, the Chinese SMR is ours, it's PBMR, but we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, who's going to give us an SMR first, like as in next year?
I think it's either Valor Atomics or it's Ala Atomics. They're based in Austin, Texas. They're gonna do their criticality test this year, and then they'll move into building their first reactor.
Oh,
So they seem to be quite close to getting close to criticality and SMR and commercialization. They seem to be, but then when you compare that with someone like Copenhagen Atomics, right? They have a business model and supply chain that's already secured, so they can scale fast, but they have a much more longer period for getting to criticality. Once they
mm,
get to criticality in 2027, then they will take about 3 years to get to commercial mass production. But the time they get there, they will catch up much more faster. So it's not about who gets to criticality and who gets the first SMR
yeah,
going. It's about who can actually scale it into big factories and
big
producing
factories,
them.
yes.
You know, if you think about like someone like Elon Musk, and he's got SpaceX, and it's taken him 20 years to get to a point where he produces one Raptor engine in a day. That's pretty amazing
That,
for building
yeah.
rocket engines, um, and so it's not about, I think it's not so much about, at the moment there's a lot of media about, oh, look at this guys, these guys have got to criticality and they have a
And then,
test
yeah,
reactor, but it's about who can actually produce them at scale and who can actually provide that really high
who can
um,
sustain it, yeah.
generation of power from doing it. So but the cool thing is that everyone's doing all these different things, and they're all competing with each other, saying our reactor is better than yours, we use this fuel, you use
I
that
had
fuel.
hope for new scale.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Which is great, which is good. I mean, I'm working on a film. I'm doing a documentary about nuclear. Um, and I'm talking to all these different guys, and we're looking at how we can go and film, how we can go on these sites, what do we film, what stories we capture, what stories we tell. It's very interesting to learn about what they're doing, how they're doing it, how different they're doing it from the old nuclear age.
Yeah.
and there is this, but there's also an argument that SMR is just highly inflated. It's all just venture capitalists trying to get into this new market and put a lot of money. I spoke to Chris Kiefer. He's from Canada, and he runs,
Okay.
yeah, a nuclear for Canadians for nuclear, and he
Oh,
believes,
Chris. No, no, no. Chris, I know Chris. The
yeah, yeah,
doctors
yeah,
for
yes.
nuclear. Mm.
And he thinks, actually where we need to be focusing on is project management and complexity management and scalability of the existing reactors by increasing its capacity by 25-30%. And there are startups that actually do that. They go into existing reactors and go, well, we can improve your output by 30% by doing all these different things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so it will be interesting to see whether this SMR thing, goes into a hockey stick or it just dies.
Oh, it just
Uh,
dies. Mm.
and from SMRs now we have micro reactors, right?
Mm.
Much more smaller than SMRs, and they are different. Like Copenhagen, I think it's a micro reactor. It's like the size of a container, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
they can produce a lot of those, and it's kind of similar idea to solar panels. You can just buy one and put it on the back of your car and just tow it to
And
wherever you
just,
want and
yeah.
plug it, and off you go. You're good to go, and it generates you a lot of energy, especially for these remote towns, right? You can buy one of those, all the entire
Put it
remote
in your
town can be
truck.
happy.
And my colleague was laughing at me when I was talking about, because we have AfriForum, we have a group here in South Africa of African speaking people, the ones that some of them have gone to America. Trump called them. So they have an association called AfriForum. So I think 3 or 4 years ago, they sort of promoted an SMR that they can put behind the truck, the one that you're talking about, meaning that they were willing to have that. Now my colleague was laughing at me to say, people have a problem with nuclear sitting, with Quebec sitting at Quebec, not bothering anyone. And you want to tell me that people are going to agree that you must have a nuclear that moves around in a truck, a nuclear
Yeah,
power
yeah,
plant that moves around in a truck. So he also laughs at the idea of having Russian floating nuclear power plants. He says,
yeah,
people don't want
yeah.
Quebec. It is sitting right uh, out of nowhere. They still don't want it. And you think they're going to want a power plant, a nuclear power plant sitting in their ocean?
Yeah, yeah. It's a funny one. And I think everyone's done a very good job at making nuclear look very bad. If you look at Netflix,
Yeah.
they did this Chernobyl documentary about, nuclear, and they make it sound like it's, oh my God, it's so
It's a
bad. And
I noticed that every film I listen, I mean, every Hollywood film I listen, there will always be one line that talks bad about nuclear, like everyone is being attacked using nuclear. It's like this scary thing whenever they mention the word nuclear, and it mentioned in almost all their films.
yeah, yeah, and it's they've done a good job in making it sound very nuclear. And Trump won his election because he talked about we have this nuclear warming going on. Everyone's building nuclear weapons, and nuclear is also associated to weapons and bombs and all that stuff. So there's a big job to do for all of us to try and bring the facts forward
Mm.
and make sure that there is the right ecosystem of activation of startups and plants and projects and all sorts of regulations and acceleration of testing and all that stuff, right? But film has got a very important role to play. Podcasts have got a very important role to play
Yes,
in
yes.
providing people factual information and really changing and revising that perception of nuclear.
Yeah, I'm talking about film. I'm also, by the way, involved in producing a film, but mine is not like yours. Mine is a fiction
Okay. Oh, I like
film. Yes,
that.
drama. I want drama.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
So
it.
we currently, with the writers, are currently busy with the script, and it took them the whole year. But I understand this is a difficult topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time they give you a script, I'm like, no, 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 no. We can do better than this. Then I start giving them ideas again. Say, you
Yeah.
see what's happening in this country, this is what has happened. And you know, the nuclear industry like evolves every day. You know,
Mhm.
we sleep today, tomorrow there's something new happen and it involves nuclear. Now you have to come back again. Okay, okay, okay. How about we change here so that we address this issue that happened in this country? So now
Yeah.
it's been back and forth, but yeah, once I get the script, then right, correct, then we move to the next step of producing a film. But yeah, it's just drama and everything else.
Yeah. I look forward to it.
But
I look forward to watching
positive
it.
drama about nuclear for a change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of my writing is satire, right? I do satire comedy. I write a lot of dark comedy. So it's about
Mm-hmm.
using comedy to debunk the myths of nuclear, but then also combining with that with following all the pioneers in their world of nuclear and how they're solving all these problems in the labs. Geopolitics, artificial intelligence, data centers, and renewable lie, right? There's a lot of
The
lies going
renewable,
around.
the net
Yeah,
zero.
yeah, the net
You-
zero,
the,
all of
the
that.
secretary, the secretary of energy in the US, he just doesn't buy this net zero story.
Yeah, it's funny how they're hosting COP 32 or 31 in Brazil and in the Amazon jungle, and they're destroying all the plants to build roads so all these important people can drive to the conference. It's like, what are you doing? What's wrong with doing the conference in Houston or New York? Why do you have to like destroy the trees you're trying to save to build yourself a road so you can have a
Yes.
conference, you know? It's very bizarre, but that's how these people behave, you know, and they think that that's okay.
Yeah, and then talking about this net zero, because there's an idea that we must stop using coal so that we can achieve net zero emissions. I don't see that happening. I don't know. Do you see it happening? I don't. Because I mean, what happens to we're a what we're a coal country. We're still gonna have this coal for the next 400 years. So what must happen with it? And what are
Yeah.
you replacing this coal with? Because they don't even want to be open enough to say this is what we want to replace these coal power plants with. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like these global policies, they are based on fiction, not
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
real. Because
It's
there's
all
no way that
yeah. Yeah, it's you're right. It's all fiction. I mean, we did that in New Zealand, you know, we in 2017 we announced the ban of oil and gas exploration, and it just destroyed the entire, supply, the investment, the talent, all sorts of stuff. And guess what? There's no replacement plan. It's like you can't just say, oh, we're gonna shut this, we're gonna stop this, and it's like, okay, so transition to what? What is the replacement? It's like, oh, we gotta figure that out. It's like, no,
we're
what?
gonna figure. And I'll tell you what happened in South Africa. One of our coal plants, Komati Power Station, was decommissioned. So Komati Power Plant was giving South Africa 1,000 megawatt. Then they repurposed Komati with renewables, wind, solar, and battery energy storage. And number one, here's what I find fascinating about this repurposing old power plants with renewables. Number one, you don't even check if there's enough wind or even there's enough sun to
Yeah,
provide that electricity. Then
yeah,
it got repurposed. And what Komati gave us after being repurposed, it's only 300 megawatt out of 1,000 that we used to get. Now we are getting 300. And that 300 is not even confirmed. It's not even something that we can guarantee.
yeah.
It's 30% of the time that you get that. Now they start telling you about.
30% of the time.
Now that's why we have battery energy storage. How do you promote your source and then using other source to saying, okay, but
Yeah,
we have battery energy storage for that? then that means you are not even confident in what you are promoting, because you are relying on something else to sustain what you strongly feel is needed. So
Mm,
it happened to say the coal power plant has been repurposed, and then we have these people lost jobs along the way,
mm.
and the economic activities in that area, they were reduced. So it is that you're correct in saying people don't say, they don't have a plan on what do we replace this base load with,
Yeah. Yeah, I
because
mean, if you
currently
yeah,
there's nothing.
yeah, if you work out the numbers of having a country like New Zealand to be net zero by 2050, you're talking 5-7 trillion dollars, and there is no way of paying that back. It's a, you have to be declare yourself as bankrupt. You know, there is no way a country like New Zealand can make that kind of money. It's a, it doesn't. There's no money to be made to pay that bill. We have signed a non-binding agreement with the Paris Agreement to pay $26 billion to do this whole global net zero thing. And our finance ministers come out and said, well, we're not paying that because yeah,
Where
I
is it
mean,
going to come from?
exactly. It's so there's you're right. So much of this is just fiction. It's just like, oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and we're gonna save the planet. It's like, oh, you're just being a selfish, egocentric narcissist, okay? Because it's not really about the climate; it's about you. Leave us alone, okay? I like to just go and use coal and gas and oil, okay?
Yes, let's use it. Imagine telling the Emiratis that they must stop using their oil.
Yeah,
It will never happen. It's just
yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
happen. So people go and say, this is what happens when you have politicians making decisions, technical decisions
yeah.
on something they have no clue of. They just love talking. They talk, and these policies are being drafted by politicians, not by technical experts. Then
Mm,
we end up in a world where we are all now forced to join this orthodox of, clean air, clean, net zero emissions by 2050. Things that they know they are impossible.
yeah,
I can't imagine South Africa not using coal. I can't, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
yeah.
But I was with this one German guy. I attended a conference with him. We were talking about Germans shutting down their nuclear plants and, you know, giving everyone loans. South
Uh,
Africa, I don't know how many loans we've received from the European Commission.
wow.
The just energy transition loans.
Ah,
So he said, what the Germans are doing, they are trying to deindustrialize. Now they want the whole world to deindustrialize. So that's the main concept around this net zero emission by 20 is to deindustrialize countries. Now, why would you want
wow.
to deindustrialize African countries who have never industrialized?
Yeah, there's nothing. Like, what do you
There's nothing.
decentralize
So
here?
allow us to reach your level of industrialization. Then we can now talk the same language, because right now conversations are unfair. We,
Yeah,
we are, joining these conversations from a very weak position, because what you are talking about, my problems are not your problems. You have
yeah, it's different.
problems of having 6 nuclear power plants that you want to shut down. I don't even have one. Now we must
Yeah,
discuss nuclear, how bad it is.
yeah,
The
yeah.
language is not the
Yeah,
same.
exactly. Whereas the focus for you should be how can you industrialize something like nuclear,
Yes.
and not the stuff that you guys have done and you don't want anymore. We want the
Mm.
new stuff and we want the efficient stuff and we want the stuff that we can, do it very fast and it's cheap and it actually provides us better value than what the way you guys are doing it.
And these just energy transition talks, I don't understand why African leaders are even joining those talks. Because transition means you are transitioning from something to something. They're transitioning from nothing, absolutely nothing, but they are there discussing just energy transition.
Yeah. So
But
are
yeah,
you involved in this policy work with the government and the minister, and are you involved in trying to shape it into what it could be in the future?
Involved as an activist. But yeah, I
Okay.
did okay, I was at some point seconded working at the department, but being involved, I like to be involved from an activism perspective, to go and say when there's a policy discussion, I'm there to
Yeah.
advocate for nuclear, because it
Yes.
works better than when you are, inside government. There you don't have to say anything, you just have to take people's opinions. But when you are an activist, then you are in a better position to advocate for things that you want to advocate for. So yeah, I'm highly involved when energy policy is being discussed. I'm there. I'm like,
Yeah.
nuclear. And by
Yeah.
the way, I do say never shut down our coal plants, because we don't want another stage 8 of load shedding. So I do speak for coal industry as well, to say don't, until we have more nuclear power plants. We shouldn't even discuss us shutting down our coal plants.
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree with that because we've started importing more coal because we stopped oil and gas exploration. Now we've just done a new policy announcement to import LNG for the next 15, 20 years, and we are going to be charging a new tax to the citizens and residents of New Zealand for the importing of
For
that
the
LNG.
importing. Oh,
And
where
when
are
you
you
talk about
importing it from?
I'm not too sure where exactly. I think it's too early to tell. I think they're very in the early stages of creating the policy and the doing the settings. I'm not too sure where they're going to be buying it from or importing it from, but we'll see. Uh,
I
but
hope when it comes to these importing things, again, what we are not discussing is the risks around importing that. We've seen what happened in Europe when suddenly the Russian gas could no longer reach them. So I think these discussions, we need to talk from all
yeah,
sides, all corners, and address all these risks, to say, yes, you want to import, but let's have a discussion. This is what happened when Europeans imported their LNG from
yeah,
Russia.
yeah.
Now they ended up not having it at all. So what happens when politics suddenly take a sharp turn? What are we gonna do?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, being energy independent is the holy grail of running countries and being
Yes,
nations, right? We are so messed up in many ways in terms of how our economy works. For example, we make butter here. We don't import butter, we make it here. We put it in the supermarket, the prices goes up because the prices of butter has gone up overseas. It's like, what is that? Doesn't make any sense. We
yes.
Why should our independence of making butter has anything to do with somebody else messing with the prices somewhere else, right? So this is the whole mess of globalization, right?
Globalization. Yes.
This is
I
the whole.
always ask, like, Nigerians, why are you struggling? You don't have electricity, but you've got a lot and lots of oil.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
rely, like, the price of oil in Nigeria is the same as in another country, because the price, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand. But yeah, we live.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
probably
I
not
think
supposed
that's
to make
what
sense anyway.
nuclear, yeah, that's what nuclear is going to provide is this idea that we can be independent. We can have
Independent,
that
yes.
base load and we can then industrialize using that base load and we can really accelerate the industrialization, artificial intelligence, data centers, robotics, drones, military. You can build
Okay.
very, very fast.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
which is
my
very
the,
exciting.
the chairperson of Nexa board, whenever he gets asked why are people against nuclear, he says because it solves all the problems in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
So it just addressed those problems, including the seawater desalination. By the way, the Egyptian plant is gonna do exactly that. Turn
wow.
seawater into drinking water.
Yeah. How big is that Egyptian plant?
It's gonna be 4 reactors of one. Is it what AP 1200? I think 1002. It's gonna be 5400. I think megawatt.
Wow. Wow. And is it supplying the entire grid, or is it just in Cairo, or is it just
It's no, it's not in Cairo. It's in Alexandria.
okay?
Yes. but not the entire grid. I don't know, but it's a good. I think it's gonna be 25% of
Wow,
the grid supply.
that's a big that's a big chunk of the
It
supply.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting and you start with like 20.
Yeah, you start
That's a
with
lot.
25. That's like, woo, it's party time. Just leave your lights on and never switch them off.
Mm.
Yeah, that's cool. Tell me more. How did you end up doing more TikTok content as a nuclear activist and a content creator?
Well, I went to, I think I met the likes of Mark Nelson, Chris, he just talked
Yeah.
about the Canadian Chris. So
Yeah.
this Stand Up for Nuclear community,
Okay.
Paris, yeah, so I met them through a colleague of mine, and I became the organizer of Stand Up for Nuclear in South Africa. So I was the ally in South Africa.
Right.
Then I learned a lot that these allies are people who advocate for nuclear in their own countries. So they do different things, including talking on social media. They are on X, former Twitter, they're on Facebook, Instagram. They do all these things. And I was like, I can also do it. Let me try. And then I tried doing it. But yeah, I realized when I was doing it that nuclear is boring.
Right.
People don't come to your account because you are talking about nuclear. Yes, they must know that I call myself nuclear goddess, so they must know I represent nuclear. But I shouldn't make my account all about nuclear. So yeah,
That's right.
but yeah, I got involved because I learned from them. I was
Yeah.
not even a social media person. I just did not even understand
Yeah.
why people are on social media. But look at
Yeah.
me now.
Yeah, I think that's why I love your TikTok is that, and that's kind of like what I'm doing with my podcast. I just don't want to talk about nuclear reactors all the time. I want to talk about life enabled by nuclear, right?
Mm.
So all the other things, that we do, we live, and it's like following someone's life in the world of nuclear, and how they live it, how they think, how they act, and it is very different to someone whose life is all about batteries and solar panels
And
and
solar
efficiencies,
panels, yes.
because they're
And
all
what
about
also
using less, 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 and
is, and
it's a very different mindset.
what also gave me credibility is that number one, I work in the nuclear industry. So when I speak, no one can say, that's not true. Whereas most of these people who are proponents of renewables, many of them have never even been into a renewable power plant. They've never seen how those power plants work. So
Yeah.
I work in the nuclear industry. Number two, I've traveled. So I vlog. So vlogging also helped me quite a lot because
Yeah.
people love traveling. So yeah,
Yeah.
so when I do speak now, some people rather prefer that I speak about nuclear only. They don't want to see me speaking about things that I'm speaking about now, politics. Like, no, stick to nuclear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been fun. I mean, this has been a great podcast, and we've covered so much things. What's sort of like your next big project other than this film that you're creating
My
and the work you're already
phone.
doing?
My big project. You know what I want to do this year? It's okay, maybe it's not big, but I want to do the energy debate. I want to involve schools. I want
Mm.
them to debate. I'm going to take out South African energy policy and say and
Yeah,
give them topics. Okay, it has nuclear, it has renewables, then give them topics. And then
yeah.
we hold a national debate around energy. But I want that debate to be for schools,
Mm.
just schools, young people debating. Because what I realized is that the cult, I call it renewables cult, it started at a very young age. If you can see the case studies that they get given at schools, you go to university, you go everywhere, those case studies, they are based on how they must save the planet, which power sources they should, you see things like that. So I want to
Yeah.
demystify that to say, let's start talking about things that matter, things that are here in South
Mm.
Africa. And
Yeah.
then, so I'm going to give them topics, but obviously it's going to be energy. But I would make sure
Yeah.
that they understand what nuclear is. I'm going to give them themes and all this stuff. So that's this year I'm doing the energy debate, South African energy debate.
Amazing. That's great. What tell us quickly your socials. Where can people find you on TikTok, YouTube?
I'm on X, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm a bit less on Instagram, but my TikTok account, I'm Prince Mthombeni, PrinceMthombeni, on all socials. So if you type this name, you'll find me everywhere.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Princey. I'm sure I'll love to have you back every time. When your next film is out, we can come back and talk about the film.
And talk about it, please.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so
great.
much.
Awesome. Okay, bye, everyone.